Hello everyone. Today I've got 3 more fantastic, exciting indie horror books for you to check out. Oh man, I've really been loving the indie horror scene lately. I know I say that in almost every video when I make a video about indie horror books, but I mean it every time. The more I discover, it's like a gold vein. The more you dig, the more really good stuff you discover. And I think you're really going to like these as much as I did because they're all fantastic. But first, as always, I want to remind you that I have books for sale also. And if you want to read any of the books you see on your screen, there is a link in the description. And if you want to buy me a coffee on Ko-Fi.com, that link is also in the description. All right, let's go. All right, so the first book I want to talk about today is called A Dark Breed by Patrick McNulty. This is part of his Monsters and Mayhem collection. There is a new book in this series coming out later this month. This is the first book in the series, and it's one you should definitely start with because this thing is excellent. This is about a family. They're on their way to a little vacation. This family is kind of falling apart because of financial difficulties. But they're going to a chalet, and hopefully, even though it's contentious, hopefully this might lead to something better, so kind of a new start, even if it's not ideal for the husband and father. So it's the husband and father, the wife and mother, and the 2 kids. The chalet is in a mountain, but there's a huge snowstorm coming in. Yeah, you can already feel them vibes, right? And sure enough, they're not going to make it to that chalet. Something is going to happen, and in a matter of life and death, literal life and death, they are going to have to expose themselves to the elements and try to find shelter on this long, empty stretch of road with nothing around them but deep drop-offs and trees and forests. And now what are you going to do? But luckily, they do find an abandoned cabin set back in the woods. And yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this, but trust me, it's about much more than what you think. Because yes, there are these horrifying creatures that are going to come from under a cave system that's set in that area. And this family is already traumatized because of what happened on their way to the chalet, the accident they had. They are kind of defenseless. And they are going to have to make some very horrible decisions if they want to survive. Because these creatures are coming. They are not of this world. They have no redeeming qualities. They are out for human flesh, human blood. They want to eat, they want to kill, they want to feast on human beings. And by the time they find that out and things start happening, it just might be too late. This book goes into full-on creature feature, gory, bloody stuff as it progresses. But it's still got that overall sense of dread because the family dynamic during this time of their lives is like their family's kind of falling apart, you know? And so there's a lot of infighting and little barbs and jabs they give to each other. And if they don't come together as a unit, you know, these creatures are going to have them for dinner, basically. So you got a cabin in the woods during a snowstorm when they're all alone and no way to get help, with these horrifying creatures surrounding them, coming for them. What more do you want in a horror book? This thing was exciting. It's very well written. It's got family dysfunction. It's got creatures. It's got everything you want in a horror book, and I highly recommend it. There's other stuff in there I don't want to talk about, but you'll definitely have to read. And I think you'll agree, it's a banger. So pick up your copy at the link in the description. And next we have Coffin Wood by Aaron Beardsell. This is a cosmic horror book, but it's interconnected short stories. But they all deal in the same little town of Coffin Wood. The characters are all connected somehow, and each story tells a different tale of strange and frightening things that are happening to them. Kind of like a short story connection where there are links between each and every story, which I really like. I really like that kind of thing because it keeps it fresh. It never gets stale. And as these stories go on, you begin to see all these little chains that connect each of the characters and each of the stories. And like I said, this is a cosmic horror book, and man, my lord, these monsters that he has created are absolutely terrifying. There are scenes in here where there were these huge eldritch creatures coming out of the ground trying to invade our world, are attacked by everything our military has to offer. It's almost like watching King Kong on top of the Empire State Building swatting away all the airplanes and bullets and everything, because they got tanks, they got missiles, they have loads and loads of guns. There's big action sequences in here, especially near the end, and yet it seems to have very little effect on these massive world-eating creatures hell-bent on human destruction. And as this book goes along, and as each story takes its place, you're going to begin to see that in this interconnected world, there's stuff that might be going on that you didn't at first realize. But then you'll read a story later on, and you'll begin to see how all these connections are made. It was a really, really great choice to write a cosmic horror book this way, I think. And I say that because it just worked for me. I was totally in the book. I didn't want it to end. I actually wanted more at the end. That's the only complaint I had. I just wanted more because this was so well written and well executed. And it'll send a shiver up your spine, because these creatures, I'm telling you, are absolutely horrifying. You definitely want to pick this one up, Coffin Wood. And again, there is a link in the description where you can do that, and I highly recommend it. And finally, we have What Happened at Hawthorne House. Now, this is a book about an orphanage for girls. But before you think you know where it's going, I want to say this. This book is kind of written in two parts, but if you're expecting these girls to be like the victims, sugar and spice and everything nice, you are in for a big surprise. Because the whole thing about this book is that these little girls are actually very cruel, very evil, and very much a danger to themselves and to others. They had a core group of these girls. They had this game. And in this game, there's one that's the queen, then below them are princesses, and then below them are duchesses. And once you're invited into this court, as they call it, the queen has absolute rule. And here's the thing, it's not a game to them. It's not just something to pass the time in their imagination. They take it way too seriously. And the only way to move up the ranks, with the ultimate goal is to become the queen yourself, is to do something so horrible, something embarrassing, something twisted to a person above you. And if you can do that, you get to move up a rank. And so these girls spend their time figuring out ways to basically mess with each other in horrible and ever increasingly violent ways. Whether it's taking somebody's clothes and throwing them out the window in the muck, in the dirt in the winter time, or whether it's actually physically harming somebody or putting them in extreme danger, trying to get that reaction out of them that lets them know, I did this, now I get her rank. And like I said, they take this game as a matter of life and death. If the queen says to do something, they do it reluctantly because they all want to be the queen. They're all jealous of whoever holds that crown. But they will do it because rules must be followed. So this is, to them, this is real life. And then they take it too far, of course, and something happens, and we're going to find out, and I'm not going to give anything away, but we're going to find out that even with this house destroyed, and even with these girls possibly gone, that this game is going to continue even beyond this life. And that anybody that sets foot in the remains of that house are going to be subject to their wrath and to their little violent sociopathic games. This book is very effectively creepy because you're not expecting this from an orphanage with little girls in there. You know, you think they're going to be the victims, but they are going to be actually the antagonists, the ones that are doing the evil, bad things. And it's very effective, and I absolutely love this book. It just shows how you can take a concept, twist it on its head, make it something much more creepy than what it should have been in the first place, and it absolutely works. It's a banger. And again, you can find the link for this book in the description. All right, so there you have 3 more indie horror books that you can get into, that you can add to your TBR, and you'll want to read all 3, trust me, because they are fantastic. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.